The call to Fajr prayer had not yet echoed through the still dawn when Zara Munro slipped quietly through the back gate of the mosque, her footsteps light, almost invisible. She carried 2 old mops, a bucket with cracked edges, and a faded cloth slung over her shoulder. Her black abaya swept the marble floors silently, her head bowed so low it seemed like she wanted to fold into herself and disappear. No one saw her. That was the point. The mosque was peaceful at this hour, bathed in moonlight and silence. Zara moved quickly, almost mechanically, as though she had done this 100 times before, and she had. She started with the prayer hall, carefully sweeping every inch. Her blistered hands gripped the mop like it was the only thing anchoring her in the world. She cleaned the women's wudu area next, her fingers red from cold water, scrubbing with a precision that spoke more of devotion than duty. By the time the first light crept into the sky, Zara was done. She leaned against the back wall, her breath shallow, a thin layer of sweat on her brow, despite the chill. As she gathered her things, a small piece of paper slipped from her pocket and fluttered to the ground. It was a child's drawing, colourful, uneven lines forming a stick figure in a long dress, standing in front of a crescent moon. Above it were written the shaky words, "My mommy is a hero." Zara froze for a moment, staring at it. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up, holding it to her chest briefly, before folding it with care and tucking it back into her pocket. She exited the mosque through the side, just as 2 women from the community entered through the front, chattering in hushed, biting tones. Zara recognized the voices but didn't look up. That's why she's cursed. Left her husband. Who does she think she is? A disgrace. Even her parents disowned her. I heard she begs at the market just to feed that child. Zara tightened her grip on the bucket, but said nothing. She walked past them slowly, head held forward now, eyes dry but fierce. The women fell silent as they recognized her, their mouths tightening, their gazes following her like judgment in the flesh. She didn't flinch. She just walked away, alone, again. 3 years ago, Zara Munro's life looked very different. She was the pride of her family, a literature teacher at a local school, known for her grace, intellect, and gentle way with children. Her mother would boast about her during women's halakas, and her father, Imam Yusuf Munro, often used her as an example in his sermons. Knowledge is a light, and my daughter, Zahra, is proof. But that light dimmed the day she married Rashid. Rashid Saeed had been a rising star in Lagos business circles, polished, articulate, with a smile that could disarm a crowd. He saw Zara at a charity event and pursued her with determination and charm. Her parents approved quickly. He was wealthy, devout on the surface, and came from a respected family. Within 6 months, they were married. The first slap didn't come until after their daughter, Amira, was born. At first, it was subtle, little corrections, criticisms masked as concern. "Don't wear that to the masjid, Zara. It draws too much attention." Then, "Why are you teaching? A wife doesn't need to work. Your place is here, with your child." Soon he was confiscating her books, locking away her phone. He read her messages, monitored her visits. Her bank cards stopped working, her friends stopped calling, and all the while, he smiled in public, kissed Amira's forehead, greeted Imam Yusuf with humility. Zara endured for years, until one evening, when Rashid came home in a rage over a misplaced receipt. Amira had been playing in the sitting room when he shouted. Zara tried to diffuse the tension, but he shoved her aside, his hand raised toward Amira. Zara stepped in between them. She didn't think, she acted. That night, she left with nothing but a backpack, her daughter, and a few crumpled bills. The scandal spread quickly. In their conservative Nigerian-American community, it didn't matter what Rashid had done. A wife leaving her husband, taking the child, was an act of rebellion. Her parents begged her to return, to think about appearances. Her mother wept. Her father went silent. When Zara refused, the silence hardened. Her name was whispered in disapproval. The mosque stopped inviting her. Parents pulled their children from her tutoring sessions. She wasn't just alone, she was erased. Now, she lives in a cramped one-room apartment behind a mechanic's shop. She wakes up before dawn every day to clean the mosque she was once honored in, slipping in through the back gate like a trespasser. She does it not because she expects forgiveness, but because something in her can't let go. The marble floors she once walked barefoot with reverence still matter to her. Maybe she cleans them in apology, or maybe in defiance. No one knows. She tells no one. By day, she works at a laundromat that pays by the load. By afternoon, she's home teaching Amira the Quran, math, reading, history, everything she once taught her students, now poured into one little girl. Amira is bright and curious, but the questions are starting to come. Why can't I go to madrasa like the others? Why do people whisper when we pass? Why doesn't Grandpa talk to us anymore? Zara never has answers, only soft embraces and stories of strong women who chose truth over comfort. The mosque she cleans is led by her father, Imam Yusuf Monroe. He's never once mentioned her publicly. In khutbahs, he preaches about patience and forgiveness. But at home, if he even calls it that anymore, her name is a closed door. She hasn't seen him in 3 years, hasn't heard his voice since the day she called to say, "I had to protect my daughter." He replied coldly, "Then you are no longer part of this household." Still, every morning, she's there, silent, faithful, and unseen. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's a need for connection, however distant. Maybe she's waiting for something to change. Something has to change. It started as a whisper, a quiet announcement on the mosque board. Eid celebration, bigger than ever this year. The planning committee, made up of respected aunties and women Zara once called friends, bustled with energy. Decorations were ordered, gift baskets prepared, food volunteers selected, WhatsApp groups lit up with flurries of messages. Zara watched it unfold from a distance, literally and figuratively. She read updates on posters taped to the mosque's bulletin board after dawn, once everyone had left. The celebration would bring community leaders, local politicians, and prominent donors. There would be speeches, feasts, and smiling children in fresh clothes. No one asked Zara to help. Before her marriage, she had led the children's Quran recitation at Eid, organized food drives, helped plan decorations. Her hands were in everything. Now, it was as though she never existed. She didn't expect an invitation, not anymore. But that didn't stop the ache. One morning, a week before Eid, Zara arrived at the mosque as usual, before Fajr. The sky was still bruised with darkness, the stars barely clinging to the edges. She moved quickly and quietly, mop in one hand, gloves on. Her sleeves were rolled, her fingers calloused, her face tight with focus. She started with the wudu area, then moved to the prayer hall. She wiped down the wooden walls, polished the marble, careful not to leave a trace. This was her ritual, her prayer in motion. She was wringing out her mop in a corner when she felt it, a presence. A man stood near the doorway, silhouetted by the first hint of morning light. Zara stiffened. She had never been caught before. He stepped forward gently, young, soft-eyed, and dressed in a white thawb. "I didn't mean to startle you," he said. "I'm Sheikh Farid Nasir, visiting from Abuja for the Eid program." She bowed her head slightly. "Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh." He looked around. "You're cleaning the mosque? At this hour?" Zara clutched her mop tighter. It's nothing. Just something I do." He tilted his head, sensing her discomfort. "Forgive me, but this is not the work of a cleaner. This is devotion." Zara turned away. Her voice wavered. "Because it's the only way I can still serve Allah without being seen." She hadn't meant to say it. It slipped out like a wound she hadn't realized was open. Farid paused, processing the weight of her words. He'd heard stories, fragmented tales of a woman who defied her husband, who brought shame, who left. No one had mentioned her name in full. But he saw the truth now, not just in her words, but in the grief carved into her face. "May I ask your name?" he said softly. Zara hesitated. "It doesn't matter. Please, just leave it alone." He nodded, respectful, but something in his gaze told her he wouldn't forget. That Friday the mosque was packed for Jumu'ah. Farid took the minbar with a calm authority that quieted even the elders. His sermon began gently, weaving Quranic verses with stories of the Prophet's mercy. But midway, his tone sharpened. "There is a woman," he said, "who comes here before any of us are awake. She scrubs our floors, polishes our prayer space, and leaves before the first light. Not for money, not for thanks, but because she still wants to serve her Lord." Even though this community turned its back on her, a hush fell over the crowd. Heads turned, eyes darted. "She is not the only one," Farid continued. "We speak of mercy, but we practice exile. We speak of compassion, yet cast stones with our silence. This woman, and others like her, are not lost. We are. He didn't say her name, but the effect was electric. After the khutbah, murmurs rippled through the mosque. Who is she? Do you think it's… Wasn't she banned? What did she really do? Zara heard about the sermon through the laundromat whispers, then again from a customer in hijab who offered her a smile too wide to be casual. By evening, 3 more women texted her, women who hadn't spoken to her in years. One sent just a salam. Another wrote, "I'm sorry for how I acted. I didn't know the whole story." Zara felt like the air around her had shifted, thinner, sharper. Her secret was unraveling, and it terrified her. The next Jumu'ah was not filled with peace. It was thick with tension. The khutbah Farid delivered echoed across social groups and family dinners like a dropped glass. Everyone had heard it. No one knew what to do with it. By Sunday, the mosque council had called an emergency meeting. They met behind closed doors, older men in starched kaftans, women in crisp hijabs. They sat in a long room where tea was served but never drunk, and the walls were lined with portraits of past imam, including one of Imam Yusuf Monroe, Zara's father. "Sheikh Farid has overstepped," grumbled Uncle Hafiz, a senior council member. "He's a guest, and guests don't stir the pot." "It wasn't an attack," countered Auntie Karima, the only woman willing to challenge the tone. "He spoke truth. Maybe it's time we listen." "She defied her husband," barked another. "She brought shame, and now she wants sympathy." Imam Yusuf sat at the head of the table, silent. When someone asked for his view, he finally spoke, low, firm. "Do not ask me to speak on what I do not know. I have not spoken to my daughter in 3 years. That is my shame, not hers." No one had a response, but the message was clear. He would not denounce Zara. Still, the council sent an informal request to Sheikh Farid. Retract the message or clarify it publicly. Farid refused. Outside the walls of the mosque, the battle played out in whispers. It was Auntie Karima who first connected the dots out loud at the women's Quran circle. She held up a tasbih, then said calmly, "The woman he spoke about, it's Zara Monroe." Gasps, a few nods, some skeptical stares. "She was a kind girl, brilliant, taught our daughters like they were her own," Karima continued. "Her husband, I heard things, saw things. None of us asked questions then. We just closed the door." Her voice cracked. "Maybe it's time we open it again." But not everyone agreed. Rashid's younger sister, Layla, well-dressed, married into wealth, and well-connected in the women's circle, had other plans. She took to her WhatsApp group. "So Zara's the secret martyr now? Please. She's probably trying to seduce the young sheikh. She always liked being admired." The gossip metastasized. Within hours, women were forwarding screenshots, debating Zahra's modesty, her intention, her silence. It didn't take long for the rumors to reach Malik, Zahra's younger brother, the one who still worked in their father's auto repair shop. He stormed into the laundromat late one afternoon. Zara was folding uniforms, her back to the door, when she heard the slam. "You really don't know how to quit, do you?" Malik snapped. She turned, her face paled. "What are you talking about? You embarrassed Dad. You humiliated all of us. Why can't you just stay gone?" "I didn't ask anyone to talk about me," Zara said softly. "But you're still there, cleaning the mosque like you're some saint, making people pity you." Zara clenched her jaw. "I clean so I don't fall apart. That's all. I'm not trying to make a statement. You already made one the day you left your husband." Her voice rose before she could stop it. He raised a hand to a mirror. Silence. Malik swallowed. "You should have let us deal with it privately. There is no private justice when your daughter is crying in the dark," she said. "You think I wanted this? To be disowned, discarded, invisible?" Malik looked at her, not with anger now, but shame. Then he left without another word. That night, Zara didn't set her alarm. Her mop stayed dry. Her resolve, for the first time in months, faltered. Amira, ever observant, noticed. "Mummy," she asked quietly before bed, "why don't we go to the mosque like other kids?" Zara froze. Amira was sitting on the prayer mat they kept in the corner of their flat, the one with frayed edges and a faded compass stitched into the fabric. Zara knelt beside her daughter. She wrapped her arms around her and held tight. "I want to," Zara whispered. "Then why don't we?" Amira asked, her big eyes glimmering. Zara looked away. The pain was too raw. "Because sometimes," she said, voice breaking, "even the house of God forgets how to love his children." Amira tilted her head. "But I thought Allah loves everyone." Zara kissed her forehead. "He does, my love. He does. Even when people don't." She didn't sleep that. The next morning, Just before Fajr, Zara stood in the doorway of her flat. She stared at the mop leaning against the wall. She reached for it. Her hands still trembled, but her steps were steady. Eid morning broke gently, sunlight filtering through thin curtains in Zara's flat. The usual buzz of excitement was absent. No ironed clothes laid out the night before, no henna-stained fingers, no freshly cooked sweets. Zara sat on the edge of the mattress, watching Amira sleep, curled against the wall. Her eyes burned with fatigue and grief. She hadn't returned to the mosque in 2 days. She had decided, today, she would not go. "I have nothing left to give," she whispered into the silence. Still, when Amira stirred, Zara put on a brave face. She helped her dress in the only outfit that still fit, a pale lavender dress a neighbor's daughter had outgrown. She tied a ribbon around Amira's braids and dabbed rose water behind her ears. "Are we going to pray Eid today?" the girl asked with cautious hope. Zara hesitated. Then, with a tired smile, she nodded. They walked the long road to the mosque, the morning heat rising. Zara kept her gaze low, her hands clenched tight. Her own abaya was worn thin at the cuffs. At the mosque, chaos reigned. The main women's cleaner hadn't shown up. The bathrooms were untidy. Prayer rugs were scattered. Trash bins overflowed with Eid wrappers and tissues. The women's hall smelled faintly of stale perfume and bleach left mid-job. "Where is Mariam?" one woman barked. "This is unacceptable." The younger volunteers, flustered and unsure, darted between complaints. Sheikh Farid paced near the entrance, wiping sweat from his brow. Eid prayer was set to begin in less than 30 minutes. Guests from the ministry had already arrived. Then, a hush. Someone at the courtyard's gate paused, eyes fixed. Zara stepped into view. No makeup, no fanfare, just her, holding her daughter's hand, eyes steady. Her breath was slow, but each step deliberate. Whispers began immediately. "That's her. She has the nerve." But Zara walked past the crowd, silent as ever. She set Amira on a bench. Then she walked to the supply closet, picked up the mop, rolled up her sleeves, and she began to clean. Some scoffed. Others blinked in disbelief. A few older women stared. One of them, Auntie Karima, wiped her eyes. The new sheikh stepped toward her quickly. "Sister Zara," he said firmly, his voice full. "Please, sit." She looked at him, confused. He placed a chair nearby. "You've done enough. Let us carry it from here." Zara hesitated, mop in hand. Just then, Imam Yusuf emerged from the main prayer hall, walking slowly. His eyes fell on the woman with the mop, her sleeves damp, her hands raw, her face too familiar. "Sir," Sheikh Farid said gently, turning to him, "this woman, she has cleaned your mosque more than anyone else in the last year, all in silence, all in shame she didn't deserve." The Imam looked again. "Zara?" Her chin trembled, but she nodded, eyes brimming. A pin could have dropped in that courtyard. The Imam's throat clenched. His hands shook. For a moment, no words came. Then, in a voice louder than any sermon he'd ever given, he said, "Forgive me for being a father to the people and not to my daughter." Gasps swept through the women's rows. The murmuring men paused mid-wudu. Zara fell to her knees, face in her hands. The mop clattered to the floor. Imam Yusuf, stern, respected, unshakable, stepped forward, ignoring the stares. He knelt beside his daughter. "I knew," he whispered. "I knew it was you. I saw the footprints, smelled the soap, but I didn't know how to face you." Zara sobbed quietly. "You didn't fail me," she managed. I needed you." He gathered her in his arms. For the first time in 3 years, father and daughter held each other under the house of God. Behind them, Amira stood up slowly, watching with wide eyes. Then she ran, straight into her grandfather's embrace. That Eid prayer began with tears and ended with healing. The days that followed Eid brought a quiet wave of change, slow but undeniable. Zara returned to the mosque the next morning, not to mop, not to hide. She walked through the front gate with her daughter by her side, chin lifted. This time, the whispers were different. "She's back. Subhanallah, she still has that same grace. She never deserved what happened to her." The women's council had gathered in the prayer hall. Some looked nervous. A few averted their eyes. But when Zara entered, Auntie Karima stood first and clapped. One by one, the rest followed. Applause echoed under the mosque's high arches. Zara's hands trembled. She had no words, only tears, grateful, cleansing. Auntie Karima approached and embraced her. "We failed you once," she whispered. "We won't do it again." That afternoon, word spread that Zara had been officially welcomed back into the mosque, not as a cleaner, but as a daughter of the community. The celebration didn't sit well with everyone. A few days later, Zara stepped out after Zuhr prayer with Amira, only to find Rashid waiting outside the mosque gates. He leaned against a black car, arms crossed, eyes seething. "You're enjoying all this?" he snapped. "Getting praised for abandoning your husband? Making me look like a fool?" Zara froze. A small crowd began to gather. Before she could speak, Imam Yusuf appeared from behind the gate. He stepped between them calmly, shoulders squared. "She didn't leave a husband," he said loud enough for all to hear. "She escaped a tyrant." Rashid's face twisted. "You're calling me a tyrant?" Imam Yusuf didn't flinch. "A man who strikes a child, who burns books, who crushes a woman's soul and calls it leadership, is no man at all." Silence settled like dust. The mosque's elders joined behind him, silent, resolute. Rashid looked around. No allies, no approval, just eyes watching. Two younger men, volunteers at the mosque, stepped forward. "We'll walk you to your car." He left with a scowl. The gate shut behind him. Zara stood still, heart pounding. Her father turned to her, voice softening. "You never have to fear him again." In the weeks that followed, something beautiful began to grow. The mosque's committee extended an invitation to Zahra. Would she consider leading the women's education department, teaching again, guiding young girls, building a space of faith, learning, and safety? She said yes. Her first day in the women's classroom, Zahra stood in front of a circle of young students with Amira sitting cross-legged in the front row. She opened a Quran, her old one, the edges scorched but pages intact. She looked at her daughter. "Bismillah," she said. Amira beamed, and the lesson began. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the narrow streets. The call for Asr prayer faded gently into the distance as Zara and Amira walked hand in hand, their steps slow and unhurried. Children darted past them, laughter ringing through the air as they clutched sticky sweets and brightly coloured balloons from the Eid celebration. A boy bumped into Zara and quickly apologized before disappearing into the swirl of play. Zara smiled, her fingers tightening around Amira's tiny hand. They walked in silence for a while. The neighborhood felt different now, not because the buildings had changed, but because Zara no longer walked with her eyes down or her heart braced for judgment. As they turned the corner, the mosque came into view behind them, tall and quiet, bathed in golden light. It shimmered like something sacred and soft. Amira looked up at her mother, her voice gentle. "Mommy, are we allowed back in now?" Zara paused. She looked at the path they'd walked, not just the one paved in stone, but the one lined with silence, struggle, faith, and fire. Her smile was quiet but steady. "We never left, baby," she said, brushing a curl from Amira's forehead. "They just finally saw us." Amira nodded as if she understood far more than her years. She skipped a little, her dress fluttering like a flag in the breeze. Behind them, the mosque stood tall, not just as a building, but as something reclaimed, a home, a witness, a promise. Zara took one long breath, and for the first time in years, she exhaled fully, deeply, freely. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe.